Hi, Eleanor, and hi, Lana. Thank you
Hi,
so
hi
much for being
everyone.
here. Brilliant. Thank you so much for being here, and we are very pleased that Mastercard Lighthouse, we arranged this event in a quick kind of way. So we're very happy we could have a good turnaround on that. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting and arranging everything so quickly. That was great.
Brilliant. Should we start with, let's talk to audience about your background. So maybe one of you can go first, like give us a little bit of intro about yourself, like how you have worked with ecosystem, what are you currently doing at Mastercard Lighthouse. So maybe one of you could take a lead.
Eleanor, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Happy to be here. I think it's really nice to see a lot of people joining from many different places, so that's always very exciting to see. I'm Eleanor. I am from the Netherlands. I moved to Stockholm 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago, right before COVID kicked in. So I haven't seen that much of all the events live happening here. So I hope to see it this fall more. I have a background in social sciences, business studies, sustainability. I've been working with IT implementation, so many different things. But before I moved here, I've been working with ING Group on global transformation and also within a healthcare company. And I did miss a bit of my social sciences background in the end there. So that's why I entered the impact tech space when I moved here in Stockholm. So that's where I started on the Mastercard Lighthouse Massive program, which was then just about to launch. So I've been working on like building it out and the whole concept. And I've been very much in touch with all kinds of impact tech startups in the whole Nordic and Baltic region, which is very exciting so far. So I'm very happy to be here and see a bit also the views from the audience and talk with Maimu.
Brilliant. Love the background you have in social sciences, and I think impact is fast becoming a center stage for investments and activity in startup space. But you are, if I may understand, you are based now in Stockholm. So even though you moved during COVID, you have moved and you are based in Stockholm.
Yes, exactly. I actually moved right before that, so November 2019.
Okay. Yeah. Brilliant. Lana, let's hear about you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Happy to see a couple of friends in the chat. Camelia, miss you. But I'm Lana. I'm born in Latvia and studied in Netherlands business. Lived in a couple of other countries around Europe before moving to Stockholm in 2015. And there pretty much also I got immersed into the startup scene through Sub 46. Probably attended way too many events for my own sake and really got caught by this startup bug. And from there on, focused more particularly on fintech type of companies and startups, and been working with that for past 4 years. Founded the Stockholm FinTech Week. Now we're preparing for the 2022 year, which is finally, hopefully, going to be in person. And joined Mastercard Lighthouse to work on Finitive program, which is aiming to make financial ecosystem here in Nordics and Baltics even stronger through pairing and partnering the innovative fintech companies with the strength and distribution channels of big established financial institutions. That's shortly about me. I'm super happy to be here as well.
Brilliant. You mentioned about the FinTech Week. Have you decided a month and date for it, or is it still under planning? How is that?
Yes, we'll kick off on the 14th of February. Okay. So very hearty, happy kickoff. That's going to be, I think from 14th to 19th, the full week. And then the main day will be on Wednesday. We will launch the tickets 1st of September or beginning of September.
Okay. Very interesting. So one of you has a background in impact, social sciences there, and then you have background in fintech, and that's your passion as well. Seeing the Stockholm or the larger Nordic ecosystem, what do you think are some of the things that you see around in these two sectors? Are these becoming prominent? What are the challenges or opportunities that are there in Stockholm? And maybe we can talk a little bit beyond Stockholm as well. So, talking about impact and fintech, whoever wants to go first.
Maybe I can kick off. Is that Stockholm and the region in general, in terms of fintech, does not lack any new ideas, and companies are springing up. I believe last year it was over 400 fintech companies here in Sweden, and Denmark and Norway is following up with that. It's a good environment all in all, cultivating a lot of innovation. It's one of the leading startup environments, at least, if not in the world, then at least here in Europe. And we can see a lot of these success stories. We all know about those that are inspiring these new entrepreneurs to take their own plunge, and we have the system around it to support it as well. So I think in Stockholm as a destination in general is attractive to a lot of international people, which makes it easier to hire the best talent who then support your goals and dreams of building these notable companies. So that's
and how is the interaction between established players? So we have established players, like if we really take the global level examples of from Klarna to going down, and then we have lending platforms which are kind of maturing up and entering the later round, and then there are very early stage startups. Do you think fintech has a good ecosystem in terms of how startups themselves are connected at various levels, or are there any gaps to fill in over there?
Well, I think Stockholm in general is it's a tight-knit community, all in all. And to be fair, if you have a good network, I think you have great ability to make things happen. It takes time to build that network, and sometimes, even though we have flat hierarchies, you talk to any CEOs, founders on the same level. It's not necessarily this hierarchical approach. It's still sometimes too hard to get through. There are exceptions, there are like the big superstars that actually do answer their LinkedIn messages, and it's easy to get to them. And it depends. But I think overall, we have the chance to really cross sector. We have a lot of companies are looking to partner. At least we can see that from the programs. They're looking to break some rules, move fast, and find good ways to do that. And to move fast, you need to find creative ways to gain more market share. So oftentimes it is through partnering with different other type of maybe value supporting technologies and companies.
Very good point. Very good point. Eleanor, if we move to you, and how do you see the overall impact infrastructure or ecosystem right now? What do you see? Are we in a is there more to be done, or do you think there is enough being done already? Any reading on the sector?
There's always more to be done. No, but I do think like this region, like there's many impact tech startups, and there's also many accelerators or like programs happening or initiatives to engage founders in this region. There is opportunity to raise capital. Like Lana and I, we were talking about this before, but we also thought that there's not always enough capital allocated to female founders, for instance. Like increasingly, there's like a view on that. Sometimes startups struggle to raise capital, even though there is a lot of capital available in the region. So there's still like challenges on that front, I think. But I do see that, for instance, the mayor of Stockholm also mentioned in some of her talks that there's the ambition to make Stockholm the capital of impact. And I see like in general, like the Nordic region, like there's it becomes more and more important. I do think, by the way, that for the Nordic region, we often forget Iceland.
Okay.
They are having a great fintech scene, for instance, as well, and also great impact tech companies. But I do see, like, as a region, like, we can collaborate also more between the Nordic countries, and like with the Lighthouse programs, we also focus on the Baltics. So even I would say, let's take the Baltics together, see if there's like synergies. But there's a lot of challenges, but
region, right?
that creates great things. So yeah, I think there's a road to go still, but there's many great things happening here.
I think the mayor did really brilliant positioning strategy there with the impact focus, since Lithuania is like making strides, and when we get the banking license in 2 weeks, we're the fintech capital, and Denmark's doing so much in like this export type of relationships. But Norway has just big funds, and they're big buck money. But like putting that focus on impact, I think was very smart way to position Stockholm as well.
Yeah, I think impact is gaining a lot of traction. Norcan closed their fund recently, and we have seen a lot of new fund managers or VCs, potential VCs are building up. So one of my interests is in how the VC sector is building up. So I think there's a lot coming in impact space in the next couple of years. There's going to be a lot of momentum over there. But very interesting thing that you talked about, Eleanor, which was that possibility that there is still a gap, like gap of capital when we talk about the female founders, and how like that's a pain point. That's not a pain point specific to Stockholm or to Nordics. That's a global pain point. So I'm not sure. I was part of one of the hackathons that was arranged a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, which was how to create more funding opportunities. But what do you think? You have been on the pulse of the startup system, like you have your hand on the finger on the pulse. What are some of the things which can be easily done to improve that? Like,
yeah, well, I think,
yeah,
I do think, of course, like with like raising capital or like inequality is the thing is that it's like a lot of implicit bias there, right? So it's hard to really grasp it because there's a lot of people like unaware of that it's happening actually, or like we all know that it's there, but we don't allocate certain situations to be as that as well. So it's like one of the major challenges, I would say. But then there's like also companies, for instance, that really focus on certain technology to reduce bias in these kind of things, or like how can you go beyond human bias, but like have it more data driven, for instance, or those kind of solutions are I would not say easy to develop, but like they are there already. So like if we would allocate a bit more attention to like those kind of solutions, that will be.
But if you talk about early stage investing, right, it's many times the investors are looking at the team in terms of, are they gonna go and get this done, And I talked about the bias. I'm not sure we're able to build a solution to avoid the bias because it's still about the founder interaction. But if you build the awareness of those biases for people that maybe, now that we know, like, we females can be sometimes a little bit more like cautious in what they promise or how they present. So if they become more aware of that, they can tackle it, but also the investor can be like, oh, okay, this is maybe just a type of communication. It doesn't, like, if it's not like just a loud mouth thing, it doesn't mean that they can't push things through. So more and more awareness and talking about it. And we have a lot of that conversation happening now, and it's just more people need to join that and really try to understand it in more depth.
Okay, very good. Let's move a little bit forward and let's talk about the MasterCard Lighthouse program. So what's the journal structure? So for our audience, why was it created, like, and how is it different from anything that's out there? Because there's a lot of, when you're an entrepreneur, there's a lot of advisory service networks. So for example, many entrepreneurs, we get thousands of entrepreneurs at Companion. Like Companion is like the first stage of entrepreneur advisory service. When you have an idea, you can walk in and ask about how to create a company, how to write a partnership agreement, what's a cooperative, what's a limited liability company. So we help with the first level of questions. where would you place Mastercard Lighthouse in the context of other programs? Let's start there.
I think typically how we formulated it, we're looking for partnership ready companies. And what that means is that if you are just an idea stage, which you just talked, the type of founders would go to Companion. They are not partnership ready because they have a lot of questions to figure out. And if you think, I'll speak specifically on the financial institution side, their main point is to minimize risk, right? So they are looking to innovate, of course. They are looking to implement new technologies, but they need to manage risk. And startups are high risk by default. So if you are not able to elaborate clearly what is it that you do and how will you get there, if you don't have any proof points that you can see, like see here, this is what I can do and this is what I've done and this is my technology and this is how. If you don't have those ingredients in place, you're way too high risk to commit or sign any, and you wouldn't even pass the security checks and the technical checks if you haven't thought through all of those questions. So partnership ready companies. That said, that has moved so fast. You know, we did some research on the founders and the maturity of companies, and we started off, it was 4.5 years on average, the company's maturity. And it has like really slided down to last program, I think it was like 1.8 years. So the companies are getting to it so much faster because they're utilizing these other type of banking as service or those type of platforms. It's just like, here, I have 1 month, I'm ready, you know? Like, I think Juni is like a great example. I think I spoke to Samir. This is like an idea they were just trying to figure out, and it's like 2 months later they've launched a bank. They have 600 clients on the sign-up list, you know, and they are ready to go. And like in such a short time, so it's just really amazing to see how things have speeded up. Yeah, it doesn't take that short for most, but for those who have started a couple of companies, they get there very quickly.
I think so too. And I think also when you look at Lighthouse specific, like there's a lot of accelerators out there that are usually looking at a bit more earlier stage with like the generic questions that they might have as a startup, like a startup has anyways. But like the skill readiness that we are looking at is like a company should have like preferably maybe already some revenue, some funding raised, some full-time employees, some users, so that they are actually able to partner with large organizations like Lana mentioned, but also able to enter new markets if they want to scale. So that's what we are usually looking for. And you don't see many programs that are looking at companies that are out there for a bit and then ready to really like go steep with their sales and their business development faster and like scaling outside the region, for instance. Or outside their country that they're operating in. And I think what is with Lighthouse also really nice for startups is that we don't take equity. It's a free of charge program. So, and it's really designed also to not take too much time from founders, because that is the case with skill ready companies. They are like very busy. So it is based on certain workshops that you have, but you're not relocated to a region. You're not there's no like long sessions that will take too much time. It's more like the more effort you put into the program, the more you get out of it. So it's really up to the founder, and quite like the entrepreneur is central in it, actually.
Okay. Very interesting point. And I think, Lana, I'll start from where you picked up that it's not for early stage companies. And early stage companies, we say they are mostly pre-product. So you are not pre-product. And you are not pre-revenue. So both of these check marks must be there. So a company coming to...
Yeah, I can tell you
please.
Scoring criteria that we look at, right? So traction and sales numbers and investments is one of those things. We do have some, for example, Indo, it's an Icelandic challenger bank. They are not in the market yet. They are about 2 years into development, but they are launching a completely new business model of a banking where they would put your deposits directly at the central bank, and they never lend it out. So they, like, if you look at the traditional retail banking model, they have turned it around, and they will not do that. So for them, it's the license that does not allow them to be in the market. They have a sign-up list, so we want to see some traction. So either it's a wait list or actual customers. If it's B2B, if you have that one customer, that's, you know, something. If you're in a B2B space, you should generally sell before you have a product, right? And then build that product as you build it with a customer. And when you see it with banks, you know, there is this part where, like, chicken and an egg issue constantly, where no bank wants to be the first bank. So if you're targeting large financial institutions, especially banks, they don't want to be the first one. So they want to see, the other bank also works with them. So then it's like, okay, then we can take this discussion. So you need to, as a founder, figure out that way to bridge that gap between the wait and find other alternative ways of how to get maybe revenues or some other type of customers for you to then be able to adjust that product for bigger customers, like bigger financial institutions.
But strictly from both, so first question, do you have a similar criteria when it comes to both programs? And we'll take a step back after I ask this question and ask you to explain both the tracks. I think that's something which some of the audience have missed, and they're asking what's the difference between your both programs. So we'll take that in a moment. But before that, I have a question that do you have a similar assessment criteria for both programs, or do both programs have independent criteria? They're different. Okay. And then I see a question here. I think it's very tricky when we take startups based on traction. Does the startup need to have a revenue on table, or a commitment from customers is enough for them to be in the program? Like, do you want a tangible proof of revenue coming into the accounting statements of the startup?
Not necessarily. So, like, there is, like, when you apply to the program, there's like certain questions there, and one of them is like, what is your realized revenue, what's your forecasted revenue, what are like your amount of users, how many FTE do you have, how much funding have you raised, what is the latest date of funding. So all these things we score companies on, and like that total score that decides on like how are you scoring compared to other applicants, and then we sort of take it into account. And so it's not like necessarily like it's a no-go if it's not happening, because it's really about like the customer promise, how likely is it that it's really happening, how's the solution, how unique is the solution, all these things, and how likely is it that this company can partner potentially. So there's many elements that count there. So of course it's good if you can already prove that you have some revenue, but some of them don't, and especially in COVID times it has been hard, but they've been working on other things, for instance, so we're developing their technology more. So there's always taken into account there.
And we've seen some companies that come through, for example, Earthbank, just the last program where they had applied for 3 times, and first time it was a little bit too early stage. I think it was just 2 people working on it. They haven't really found their product market fit. So it's too early. The second time they applied, it seems like they have a product market fit. They kind of like just missed the mark. I don't remember exactly what was the points, but now on the 3rd time they applied, they not only got in the program, they won the program. So it was, they were, in terms of their maturity, they were 12 people in the team. They've had 3 customers already, and that was them. But it really depends, as Eleanor said, that let's say if you have raised capital and you're building a product, and there is a potential, it's a fine if you don't have revenues, or maybe you're planning to make revenues next year. That's fine. But typically, if in Infinitive, it's a 12-point scoring system, revenues account for 1 point. So it will balance.
Okay, so it's a multi-point scoring system. So that should be a breath of relief for some of the startups out there. So I think multi-point scoring system means you can go better on some other points if one of those is not working. But let's take a couple of steps back, not 1 step, but 2 steps back. So if you can explain the program really fast, like what's the overall program at MasterCard Lighthouse, and then if we can take each of these tracks and explain it to the audience. And audience, what you could do is just line up all your questions as we are taking these insights from Lana and Eleanor. And I would also say this is a great way to network. So anybody who wants to share their LinkedIn profile or startup link, please do so, so that we can interact and reach out to you later. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
If you just drop your website, we can quickly check it and pretty much.
Yeah, why not? So who wants to explain the program in a short pitch about the program? Let's take that.
Maybe Lana can go first because the program was first there. So it's like a more logical order, I guess.
So yeah, the program kicked off 2018 with the premise of MasterCard want to scout and find the most innovative companies that they can partner, invest, or work together. And they came up with that because they invested in Izettle when they were pre-revenues. And that turned out great. And so they were looking for a structured way to do that. Now, they're looking to partner, but they are also looking to serve their customers, which are the banks. And that's why the banks are invited to join the program as well. And this year, we're looking to expand it beyond just potential bank partners, have additional partners there as well that are even our previous alumni and other type of things. And this is going to be the 7th time we're running the program. And our main objective and goal is to strengthen the financial ecosystem in Nordics and Baltics. So it's a very local program in a sense. The partners are locally operating. Then on the MasterCard side, yeah, they can help with contacts and redirect you and MasterCard globally, internationally, with other markets that you're going to, but it's primarily for this market focused on partnerships. So sometimes we can accept companies that are outside of the market that want to establish into Nordics on our offbeat case. So we're looking for the companies that have partnership perspective, either with MasterCard or with banks or with both. Preferably both. So when I look at the applications, I look at the partnership case, and if you can elaborate that in a very clear, okay, we're looking, like say, Receipt Hero from the program before, they did really well. They help banks digitalize their receipts. It's a huge problem in banking to digitalize them. They came out with 3 signed POCs and the 3 workshops, and they have very clear, simple value proposition. This is what we can do. And that's simple for everyone to understand. The more complex, if you start saying like, oh, I can do all these 10 things, it's harder to grasp. It's going to be harder to involve because banks will need to involve 10,000 people from their side to understand what is it that we can do and how and where. So the more clear, the more concise you can be, the easier it is to get in the program. And Eleanor, maybe you want to tell about Massive.
Just a point on that. So when a fintech startup or a potential fintech business is applying to the program, they need to be very clear about their own partnership strategy and be very transparent about it, because it makes your job easier in terms of locating the right network, even from the start.
Exactly. Stage. Have an idea. Of course, there will be a discussion, right? So it's a two-way street, the partnership. But you have to have some idea, okay, I want to do this, so I need a partner like that to help me achieve this, and this is something that the partner also will get out of, because we're not in a charity necessarily. Like it needs to be good for all parties involved. So if you can focus on this win-win-win situation, then everyone is going to be happy and want to move things forward. And if you can have a concrete thing, let's work on this. The people we work at the bank, they then go internally and say, hey, I need a head of this department and head of that department to come in to assess this and have this. So you get this high level people just brought into the meeting room and okay, let's talk, right?
Excellent. How does it work for the impact track? Lana was mentioning about banks and MasterCard being your key interest. If you're moving in, you need to have some sort of relevance there. How does it look for the impact program, and how old is the program?
Yeah, so indeed, like the Finative program that Lana focuses on is really looking at bank and MasterCard partnerships, and thereby also looking at MasterCard's core business. But like Lighthouse Massive that I run is like more going beyond that. So it's like the MasterCard broader ecosystem, as we say, and it is designed with the vision to help 1 billion people live more prosperous and secure lives by 2025. And they're trying to achieve that by helping impact tech startups scale globally to partnerships. And by helping these impact tech startups, they can achieve their impact quicker than they potentially would be without partnerships. So it was launched end of 2019. So we are now about to go into the 4th edition. And it is different from the Finative program in the sense that we do have 2 banking partners in there, but it goes more into like broader partnerships. So you get introduced to all kinds of organizations. There's only 5 companies in each edition, and it is really tailor-made. So a company that is, for instance, focused on the African continent, who might be interested in getting introduced to certain NGOs. We are looking for advisors that can support them and connect them to the right parties there. Or if it's like more Nordic focus on responsible consumptions, we can connect them to organizations that make more sense in this region. So it is really tailor-made in that sense. And we have advisors from many different backgrounds with all very broad networks. We, for instance, have someone from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation joining. We have someone from the UN that helps on impact measurements, since that's also one of the elements in this program. So there's many different backgrounds that can provide like startups certain support. And when we come back to the criteria, like we were talking about company traction criteria, revenue, etc. But there's also the criteria of like, can we actually help this company? Because otherwise it would be like a waste of time for the founder if they cannot be helped as much as they would need. So that's also where the momentum in time could make sense. Like Lana mentioned with Earthbank before, like sometimes this is not the right time, but like because it runs twice a year, it could be like a better moment. So it's really like about partnerships and scaling globally rather than like partnering within the region. So really depending on what the startup might need.
So global impact tech, so global focus, impact tech focus, and then something that the impact track is relatively new compared to the fintech track. What if a company is on both sides? So it's in sustainable finance or some sector which is borders on both impact and fintech. What do you do?
We have had those. That was also like, for instance, the economy. They are fintech tracking carbon footprint. They were also one of the reasons that we thought like, shouldn't we have like a separate program tech for impact? So it was before Massive was launched, but Earthbank, for instance, could also fit in the Massive tech because they are also focusing on impact. But then it really goes into like one of the questions you have to answer in your application, like, why do you want to join this program? Do you want to partner with Nordic and Baltic banks and MasterCard, or do you want to scale globally and get introduced to all kinds of organizations? So what is your priority there? So, and based on that, yeah, we can assess like what makes more sense for this company. You cannot take part in both programs, but there's then always one that fits better.
Yeah.
Let's get a little bit into please.
Yeah, that's interesting to always know like what is the roadmap for companies for the next 6 months. What are the top priorities, right? So we can align with those as well. If it is gaining more customers or like establishing presence, in the local markets, Infinitive is more relevant. But if if you do good in Africa and need some support, and Massive is fantastic with the advisory board and all the connections that they have. It's really strong opportunities for finding relevant parties in those developing markets.
Great.
And also like a little bit, I saw the chat because like people are saying like I'm this company, but I already saw like Otalo and Resistomap in the chat. I noticed that they all both apply to Massive, and I think they're both really interesting companies, very impactful. So to come back at like when is a company interesting for Massive, it's like if it can have like a significant impact on people or planets, then it makes a lot of sense.
You want to talk
When
a
you
little
talk
bit about
about,
your impact measurement thing? That's, I think,
yeah,
important.
that as well, and a little bit more on, because impact is very broad. Like if we bring, let's say, a framework like Sustainable Development Goals, it covers everything. Is there a particular focus, or you are quite open to everything? Like, do you focus more on the sustainable environmental side of startups versus, let's say, social innovation side of startups, or are you like, how would you say, agnostic? You don't prefer any of these? You rate them equally? Yeah.
Yeah, so there is a certain focus, but then there are still, I think, 10 or no, 8 SDGs that we focus on. So it's still quite broad. But what is like the reason that we did that is that we want to work with companies that can have a significant impact. So on both people, like because we are having this vision of helping people live more prosperous and secure, or planet. So it can be any climate action startup as long as it has a significant impact and very interesting solution, or like a groundbreaking solution. We have had desert control in the program. They are using a liquid nanoclay technology to turn deserted lands into fertile lands. We have a plastic-free, turning agricultural waste into a replacer for plastics. But we also had Gemmy one from Denmark. They are more on the financial inclusion side. So it can be very different sort of companies. We also had health tech. We also have had biotechnology. So that's why we assess, like, it really comes to like a certain startup and what kind of partners they are looking for, how much traction they might have, how impactful they are, and how unique they are as well, actually, in their solution. So we also are looking for carbon footprint reduction, for instance.
Excellent. So it's good that you mentioned that there is a framework of 17 goals, but your focus probably is on 8 core goals where you are focusing on. Then it's very different from, we had a very interesting and a very powerful program a few months ago from Sting and Norken collaboration, which was the climate action. That was very popular. So at Companion and other forums like in Startup Grind as well, we got a lot of queries from startups in terms of how this works. So yours is more, I would say, broad. It's not particular one goal, for example. Something that I think would be interesting to discuss is that how is this program structured that you have? So it's how long it is, how many startups are usually there in a particular track, and how do they progress over this track, and what's the finish line? When do they finish out, and what are some of the results they accomplish, like previous startups that have been? So if you could explain a little bit about the program dynamics, maybe it'll be easier for startups to see a fit and how they can be part of it.
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, like it's really about like don't take too much time from founders because they are very busy. So we are very focused on like making it as effective as possible. So it takes around 3 months to program, but it's actually 3 main workshops that you go through. And then there's also an investor demo day taking place. You don't need to be raising funding necessarily, by the way. And then there's like certain showcase moments that you can actually pitch your company for a larger audience. And then in the end, we go, for instance, to Slush, or we go to Money 2020 as a grand finale event. So that's a bit about the elements, but there's like 3 main workshops where you meet with all kinds of advisors that are specifically focused on like, how can I help you, your specific company scale? And then we have with Massive this format of commitment and accountability. So that means that there's like during the first workshop certain commitments made of like, I will introduce you to these organizations if you commit to actually follow up on those contacts. And that's really a format that makes a lot of sense in making something happening in this program. So there's not loose advice, but there's like really a commitment to like helping these companies and open doors to them. So there's like partnership dialogues that are starting. Same as for like separate sessions. Maybe if a company needs to work on the storytelling, they are the advisors are scheduling a separate session to really like focus on their company specifically. So there's quite tailor-made elements, and there's 5 companies in each Massive program, so it runs twice a year. But for Finitive, the structure is somewhat similar, but there's like 15 companies in each edition, and it focuses on certain markets. So in the spring, we focused with Finitive on Denmark, Norway, and Estonia. Latvia. And then in the fall, we focus on Estonia, Finland, and Sweden. So there's like different markets, and we also always open up for Icelandic companies and Lithuanian companies. So there's all Nordic companies can apply, but we try to fill a class and then have events happening in that region or that country.
The number count that you gave, like 5 and 15, is that the Swedish count or the overall program count?
Overall.
Overall program count. So the batch that is starting, your next batch is scheduled to, the applications close day after tomorrow, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, Friday.
Friday. So everyone out there who want to send in their applications, and whoever is going to be listening to it after the session is put online, Friday is the day for you to send the application. And then you're saying 5 and 15 companies, which means the impact program is going to grow over time. FinTech is already at 15 level in terms of, You also talked about investment. When you are checking startups who are applying, do you prefer startups who have gotten some funding, or is it okay that startups are kind of bootstrapping their way?
Both is fine. I think it depends. Some companies are bootstrapped in terms of self-funded, or if they have paying customers already, that's like amazing.
Okay.
Don't take anyone else's money if you can make it yourself. So it kind of depends on but if you have no customers, no investments, no commitments from anyone, you're probably a little bit too early.
Okay. And then you mentioned about the demo days or potential exposure opportunities. Do you think there is a funding opportunity as well for companies, or is it partnership exposures only?
We organize Investor Demo Day, which we invite our investor network. It's international. We've had everything from here from Sweden till Silicon Valley type of investors taking part. And before it was a pitch session type setup, and we will do speed dating matchmaking for this edition. So you will have one-on-one with a number of investors that matches your profile, your interest, and their sort of geographical stage type of criteria.
And just to be clear, you don't take an ownership stake in the company, and there is no fee for the program.
No.
Okay, so as long as the startup gets accepted, it's something that is not going to cost them in either way. Yeah.
No, it's funded by MasterCard, and in ways sometimes from the bank's budget as well. But from the startup, you should see the Finitive program. You should see it as business development activity. Like you go into a meeting, you pitch, you discuss, you push forward. You say, this is what I see going forward. You have to find these win-win cases, both for them and for you, and it's your business development activity. That's what it is.
Okay, so it's sales and marketing and business all combined together. Really good. What kind of founder commitment are you looking at when they turn into this program? Many accelerators have full-time or at least half-time commitment on at least some of their founding team members. How is the time commitment in the program? What is your experience with teams? Have teams struggled with that? And any insight on that would be really good.
My favorite thing to say is that we don't run an accelerator program. So we don't ask you to make marketing plans or do these deliverables or like whatever accelerators ask you to do. So when I say business development, it is that the founder may sort of on the first meeting, you're going to have the founder, maybe the VP of sales or a bank partnership, the responsible relation customer, whatever, in that meeting, right? And then the second meeting, you probably need to involve maybe your CTO. So in terms of the process, it is like your sales process. And you have to think of it from a point of partnership where, and the difference between typical sales and the partnership is that, both parties has to gain something. Like if bank is going to help you distribute your product to their customers, like they need to also have something in it, for them. So you need to find this like more strategic sales thinking in how you're going to present it. And in terms of, that process can really, the time commitment can really depend. If you're relatively early on and you haven't maybe, you don't maybe have a responsible for your security, right? So you have questions that aren't answered. You're sort of like, we have maybe Google Cloud and they're safe, and it's we're doing good. We have this login information, whatever the platform we're building, and the bank is going to go, okay, so what is your practice and policy in case things happen? And you're like, and you need to work on it, and it's going to help you and your business to develop and professionalize, but that will take some time, right? So it really depends, that involvement from how far you're at, and you need to prepare. So you need to do your research on the partner, understand what they're about. How can you, maybe the people involved in the program also, like, it's huge organizations, right? Like, we're all just people, and if you talk to me or Eleanor about MasterCard, and hey, can you tell us like this specific wearable department are doing this and this? I don't know. You also need to do your own research and be like, hey, but I saw this sustainability statement put out from Swedbank, and we think we can help them with blah, blah. Like, then you go with that. It's like, hey, you said it publicly, like, get the right people on the table. Like, let's see, I can help you with this. Okay. So do your own research.
No, it's really good that you mention it, because with accelerators and incubator programs, in many cases, founders and startups get into a hand-holding kind of a mode, that they'll get a lot of support in terms of the very basics of how the startup needs to be built. But in your case, it's very much hands-on. You need to be out there and doing the work. You'll just show them an opportunity door, and then they need to open it and kind of make the deal.
And we have a strategic advisor that we actually pay to be there. So she is amazing, and she kicks everyone's asses. Okay. Like, she helps you to get to market, figure out your product market fit, scale globally. But she's like, you need to work for it, and she's so connected and so great, and everyone is always like, the meetings with her is like insane.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's really good to hear. I think we are in the last couple of minutes. So let's try to round it off with, if startups are going to apply to you, what would be your general advice if they want to make it to the program? Like, what needs to be in their application, or how should they present their startup? What are the areas? So anything generally on that?
I think with MassiveIt, it's really like, there's also one question asked, like, what kind of partners are you looking for? And the more specific you are, the better, because then you help the board that is reviewing applications. Like, can we actually help this company, and in what way? Okay. So it's really like, explain your solution and help them think in the right way, how you can partner, or what kind of support you need. And I think with Finitive, it's really like, present your clear case. Like, make it as easy as possible to say yes to, maybe also like explain your solution, know what you're doing, and like, present it in the right way, I think. And also, like, with Massive Specific, it's like, what kind of impact are you making? How are you contributing to making people live more prosperous and secure, and to making an impact on planets?
Now, we didn't discuss the impact measurement. Maybe you have something like, can you help startups somewhat over there? Because it's a new field. Many startups I've seen in other accelerators struggle with the measurement aspect.
We do have that as one element of the programs, that we help startups measure their impact and the kind of elements that they need to look at to be able to actually communicate it also in a way, or that they can use it maybe also to pitch to investors in the right way. So it's a bit more concrete than just an administrative thing to know your impact. So there's many elements, and it's still like a field that gets explored, but we developed a tool for that, and now we are using that for quite some editions now. So
okay, brilliant. Any last thoughts, Lana, from you, and then we wrap up the session?
Yeah, sure. I think my last thought to all the founders is that the big institutions, they need you as much as you need them. So remember that it's a level play field, and you know, we're all there to support each other and help each other, and you know, just know your worth, and be like, you have your vision, just stick to that vision, right? Like, don't let other people opinions wear you off it just because they think it's not gonna work, or you know, it's like, listen to it, but you have worked on your solution for the most time and you know it best, so stick to your guns, and just take all the feedback as, you know, as a point of reference, but not necessarily that you need to necessarily completely change your course.
Completely well said. I think, thank you so much. A big thank you to you, Eleanor and Lana, for being here and for explaining the program. I think I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone who joined in and who will later be listening in to or watching this. Thank you all for being here. Don't forget our Friday's event, where we are bringing Antler, VAM, Fast Track Malmo, Startup Action, and Inventure to discuss pitching and how you can take your startup to pitching in fall. Thank you everyone for being here. Have a very good afternoon and an awesome sunny day. Enjoy your semester while it lasts. Semester means vacation. Yeah. Okay. Take care and have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good day. Thanks.
Have a good day.